The skyline of Chicago glittered outside the penthouse window, a city I felt I had conquered. Crestview Holdings had just sealed its legacy. I watched my wife, Sarah, laugh with Mark, my partner and the brother I never had. They'd always been close. Too close. The thought was a familiar, unwelcome ghost I always pushed away. But when I picked up her purse to bring to her, her phone buzzed. The screen lit up. A preview from Mark. He has no idea, does he? After 5 years, you'd think he'd notice how we look at each other. The ghost was real, and it was holding a knife. My perfectly constructed world imploded, silently, behind a calm smile. I walked back over, her purse in my hand. Sarah. For 20 years, she was the anchor to my ambition, the graceful counterpoint to my drive. The woman who stood beside me as we built Crestview Holdings from a single shabby office into a titan of Chicago real estate. My perfect wife. And Mark, we'd met with $5,000 and a blueprint on a napkin. He was the charismatic frontman. I was the strategist. He wasn't just my partner, he was the godfather to my son. The man I trusted with my life, and apparently, with my wife. I watched them now, a matched set of beautiful liars. His hand rested on the small of her back. It wasn't friendly. It was familiar. It was ownership. Every shared glance I'd once dismissed as friendship was now a chapter in a secret history written behind my back. I held out the purse. "You left this." My voice was a stranger's, calm and even. Sarah took it, her fingers brushing mine. "Oh, thanks, honey. You always take care of me." The words landed like stones. Oh, I would. From this moment on, I would take care of everything. The party noise faded into a dull ringing in my ears. Hours later, I stood alone in my office, the same window, the same glittering city. But the lights weren't beacons of my success anymore. They were cold, indifferent witnesses to a 20-year crime scene. My entire adult life had been built on a foundation of 3 people: me, Sarah, and Mark. Now I saw it for what it was: a fault line waiting to shatter everything. I met Mark in a dive bar with a leaky roof, sketching our first apartment building on a cocktail napkin. He was all teeth and charm, a born salesman who could sell a penthouse to a hermit. I was the numbers guy, the strategist who saw the structural weaknesses in every deal. We were a perfect machine. He'd clapped me on the back after our first brutal negotiation, the one that almost broke us. "We're brothers, he'd said, his voice hoarse with adrenaline. "Nothing and no one can ever touch us." Sarah was supposed to be the missing piece. The brilliant young architect who saw the soul in our concrete ambitions. I fell for her mind first, her grace second. Our first date was walking a muddy construction site at dusk, planning a future that seemed as solid as the steel beams around us. She smoothed my rough edges, hosted the dinners that sealed the deals, and became the elegant, trusted face of Crestview Holdings. She wasn't just my wife, she was my partner in every sense of the word. The 3 of us became an institution. The Crestview Trio, they called us. I'd actively encouraged their friendship. It made life easy. "You and Mark handle the charity gala, honey. You're so much better at that stuff." How many times had I said something like that? How many opportunities had I gift-wrapped and handed them? I now replayed every knowing glance I'd once dismissed as camaraderie. The late nights at the office I'd assumed were about work. The weekend trip I'd missed because of a flu, when they'd gone to our lake house to get a head start on the new zoning proposal. The memory that truly twisted the knife was from 3 years ago. My father passed, and I was a ghost, barely functioning. Mark organized the funeral. One night, I found him and Sarah in our kitchen. She was crying softly, and he was holding her hand across the marble island, stroking it with his thumb. He looked up and saw me, his expression a mask of deep, brotherly concern. "Just telling her we'll get him through this," he'd said. "We're a team." I had nodded, flooded with gratitude, so damn grateful for my friend, for my wife. But he wasn't comforting her for my sake. He was comforting his lover over the temporary inconvenience of her husband's grief. My fortress wasn't breached from the outside. It was never a fortress at all. It was a stage, meticulously built for their long-running play, and I was the only one who didn't know I was the fool. Rage is a fire. It burns hot and fast, and then it's gone, leaving only ash. What I felt was different. It was the slow, creeping cold of deep space. A perfect absolute zero, where all emotion died and only purpose remained. I wasn't a grieving husband. I was a strategist facing a hostile takeover of my life. And I never lose. The first call I made wasn't to a lawyer. It was to a man named Costello, a former detective who now specialized in, quote, due diligence, a polite term for finding skeletons. I met him in a sterile coffee shop downtown, a place with no memories. Discretion is paramount, I told him, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were photos of Sarah and Mark. I need a complete picture, movements, communications, financials. I need to know every lie they've ever told. Costello didn't ask why, he just nodded. A picture is what you'll get, Mr. Vance. High resolution. While Costello painted his picture, I set my own stage. A week later, the three of us were at our usual corner table at Gibson's. The kind of place where deals were made and secrets were kept. I let the wine flow, let them relax into their familiar performance of friendship. The new lakeside tower, we're hitting some headwinds with the zoning board, I said, swirling my Cabernet. Councilman Miller is playing hardball. It's going to take finesse. Complete, absolute trust between the partners. I looked from Mark's face to Sarah's, holding their gaze. Everything we've built depends on it. On loyalty. Mark clapped my shoulder, his grip firm and reassuring, the same hand that had touched my wife's back. You know me, we're lock and key, always have been. Sarah smiled, a perfect practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. We're a team, honey. We'll handle Miller together. They were so good at it, so comfortable in the lies. The ease of it was what sealed their fate. They didn't just betray me, they respected me so little they didn't even think I was capable of seeing it. Costello's first package arrived a week later. A plain courier envelope. No return address. I didn't need to see the grainy photos of them checking into a boutique hotel on the Gold Coast. I didn't need the transcripts of their saccharine texts. That was the emotional part, the part I'd already cauterized. I was looking for the structural weakness. I cross-referenced the hotel dates with Mark's company expense reports. There it was, a pattern. Every tryst was billed to Crestview Holdings under vague project codes. Client entertainment, site logistics. He was using our company, my company, to finance his affair with my wife. But that was just sloppy. The real prize was deeper. I spent the next 2 weeks locked in my home office, poring over 5 years of financial architecture. And then I found it. A series of escalating payments to a consulting firm I'd never heard of, Apex Strategic Solutions. The invoices were for zoning analysis on projects we'd completed years ago. The firm was a ghost, no website, no office, just a P.O. box. With a few more calls, I cracked the shell. Apex Strategic Solutions was an LLC. The registered agent was a lawyer I didn't know. The sole beneficiary, however, was a trust. A trust established by Mark, for the benefit of one person, Sarah Vance. He wasn't just paying for hotel rooms. He was siphoning millions from our company and funneling it directly to her. This wasn't just an affair. This was a conspiracy. A long con, years in the making. They weren't just stealing my life, they were stealing my legacy. And in that moment, the cold purpose inside me finally had a name. It wasn't revenge, it was demolition. I stared at the paperwork, the architecture of their betrayal laid bare. The rage was gone, replaced by a profound, chilling quiet. Demolition doesn't require heat, it requires precision. I closed the file, slid it into my personal safe, and walked out of my home office, smoothing my tie. My expression was a carefully constructed mask of normalcy. Sarah was in the kitchen, humming as she poured 2 glasses of wine. She looked up, her smile as effortless as her treachery. There you are. I was about to send out a search party. Just finalizing some details on the lakeside project, I said, taking the glass she offered. Our fingers brushed. I felt nothing. No spark, no revulsion. Just the cold contact of two objects. It's going to be our masterpiece. Our masterpiece, she corrected, her eyes shining with proprietary pride. The Crestview Trio's legacy. I clinked my glass against hers. To our legacy. The words tasted like ash. I watched her sip the expensive Chardonnay, paid for with money I earned, in the home I built, while she plotted to ruin me with the man I called my brother. The sheer audacity of it was almost impressive. They weren't villains from some grand drama. They were just common thieves with good taste. They saw me not as a husband or a friend, but as a resource to be managed. The next morning I called Mark into my office. The view of the city I loved stretched out behind him, framing him like a king in his stolen castle. I kept my demeanor relaxed, collaborative. Good news, I began, my tone upbeat. I found a way to accelerate the financing for Lakeside. It's creative. A new offshore holding structure. It'll shield a huge portion of our capital from taxes and the prying eyes of the new city comptroller. Mark leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with the familiar spark of avarice. This was the language he understood. How creative are we talking, E? It requires moving significant liquid assets through a few discrete channels. For it to work, we have to consolidate several smaller project funds into one master account for the transfer. I paused, letting him connect the dots. That includes the consultancy budgets, Apex, and all the others. I was handing him a golden shovel, inviting him to dig his own grave deeper. He had a choice: confess to his shell company now, or allow me to roll his stolen millions into my perfectly legal, perfectly documented, and perfectly inescapable trap. His greed wouldn't let him see the choice for what it was. His smile was predatory. You're a damn genius. That's why you're the strategist. Let's do it. Whatever it takes to protect the company. Of course, I said, returning his smile with one of my own. Whatever it takes to protect what's mine. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in deception. I became the perfect husband, the perfect partner. I brought Sarah coffee in the morning and complimented her design choices for the new charity gala. I brainstormed with Mark over late-night whiskeys, sketching out the future of Lakeside Tower, a future he would never be a part of. All the while, my real work happened in the silent hours after they slept. My personal attorneys, a firm I kept completely separate from Crestview, worked around the clock. The offshore entity we created wasn't some flimsy shell. It was an ironclad asset management trust based in Switzerland, named with a touch of personal irony, the Sarah Mark Legacy Fund. The paperwork was dense, layered, and utterly impenetrable. It was designed to look like a standard, aggressive tax shelter, the kind Mark loved. But buried deep within its covenants were two critical clauses. The first was a majority control clause, giving the founding trustee me unilateral power to dissolve, freeze, or reallocate all assets in the event of gross financial misconduct by any other signatory. The definition of misconduct was left intentionally, beautifully vague. The second clause was the masterstroke. It was a poison pill. It stipulated that all consolidated funds were to be held as collateral against a new line of credit I was personally guaranteeing for the Lakeside project. Their stolen money wasn't just sitting in an account. It was now underwriting the single biggest venture in Crestview's history. My venture. The signing was scheduled for a Thursday. I chose the main conference room, the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Millennium Park. I wanted them to feel on top of the world as they plummeted off the edge of it. Mark breezed in, radiating a smug energy. He was wearing a new watch, a Patek Philippe. I knew for a fact he couldn't afford on his salary. He'd clearly been dipping into the Apex funds again. Morning, E. Ready to make history? He slapped the stack of documents on the table. Lawyers already gave it their blessing. Said it's the sharpest piece of corporate structuring they've ever seen. Your lawyers? I asked, keeping my voice light. Of course, had to have our guys vet it. Can't be too careful. He grinned, oblivious. He'd handed my perfectly constructed cage to his own lawyers, and they'd told him how safe it was. The arrogance was breathtaking. He saw the structure as a way to wash his stolen money clean, hiding it within a legitimate, larger transfer. He thought he was outsmarting me. I pushed the signature page towards him. "After you, partner." He signed his name with a flourish, a black slash of ink that was his own death warrant. He slid the pen to me. As I signed my own name, my hand was perfectly steady. The transfer of every liquid asset from Crestview Holdings, including the secret Apex account, was now authorized. The trap was set. All it needed was the bait. That night, Sarah was in a celebratory mood. She'd laid out a bottle of Dom Perignon, the one we'd been saving. To Lakeside, she toasted, her eyes sparkling. And to the man who made it all happen. To us, I replied, touching my glass to hers. The sound was a hollow little chime. "I was looking at this villa in Tuscany for our anniversary trip," she began, scrolling through photos on her tablet. "A sun-drenched terrace, an infinity pool overlooking rolling hills. Now that our finances are more flexible, I think we deserve it." Our finances. She thought the stolen money, now nested safely within my trap, was hers to spend. I looked at the photo of the villa, a perfect picture of a life she thought she had secured. "It's beautiful, Sarah. Book it." Let her dream a little longer. The fall would be that much harder. The wire transfer was initiated the next morning. From my desk, I watched the numbers drain from one set of accounts and reappear in another. Millions of dollars, years of work, and the entirety of their betrayal, all consolidated under my absolute control. There was no fanfare, no dramatic music, just a quiet line of text on my screen. Transaction complete. I felt a stillness descend over me, the quiet of a battlefield after the decisive shot has been fired. For a week, I did nothing. I let them live in their fool's paradise. Mark was more confident than ever, swaggering through the office, making grand pronouncements about the Lakeside project. Sarah was absorbed in planning her Tuscan fantasy, ordering new resort wear and expensive luggage. They were giddy with success, convinced they had pulled off the perfect crime. The first tremor came not from me but from the city. I'd arranged a meeting with Councilman Miller, the zoning board hardliner. But I didn't go alone. I brought with me a guest, the new city comptroller, a woman with a reputation as a bulldog, and I came bearing gifts. In the sterile City Hall meeting room, I laid out my proposal. "Gentlemen, Madam Comptroller," I began, "Crestview Holdings is entering a new era of transparency. In light of the scale of the Lakeside project, we are volunteering for a full voluntary forensic audit of our books going back 5 years. Miller and the comptroller exchanged a look of stunned surprise. Mark, sitting beside me, went rigid, his smile froze on his face. What the hell are you doing?" he whispered, the panic barely concealed. I ignored him, my focus entirely on the officials. "We believe in this city. We believe in doing business the right way. We want to be an open book." I slid a single file across the table. "And in the spirit of that transparency, we've already flagged a few irregularities our internal review has uncovered. A series of highly questionable payments to a consulting firm called Apex Strategic Solutions." Mark's face went white. The color drained from him so fast I thought he might faint. He was looking at me now, his eyes wide with dawning, sickening horror. The friendly partner was gone. In his place was a cornered animal. I gave him a small, cold smile. "Don't worry, Mark," I said, my voice low enough for only him to hear. "I told you I'd do whatever it takes to protect the company." I turned back to the comptroller. "You'll find my partner, Mr. Rossi, has personally signed off on every single one of those payments." Mark didn't speak a word on the elevator ride back up to our office. The silence was thick with the sound of his world collapsing. The moment the doors opened to our floor, he grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in like claws. "What did you do, Ethan? What in God's name did you do?" His voice was a ragged whisper. The confident facade he wore like a second skin had been flayed away, leaving behind something raw and terrified. I calmly detached his hand from my sleeve and walked into my office, leaving the door open for him. He followed, shutting it behind him with a click that sounded like a cell door locking. "I protected the company," I said, walking around my desk and sitting down. I didn't offer him a seat. "You've been stealing from it for 5 years, Mark. Did you think I wouldn't find out?" "Apex, that was a misunderstanding. A bookkeeping error." The lie was pathetic, flimsy. I laughed. It was a cold, empty sound. A multi-million-dollar misunderstanding that terminated in a trust fund for my wife? Don't insult my intelligence. The city comptroller is going to have a field day with your bookkeeping. They'll find every fraudulent invoice, every fake expense report. They might even look into tax evasions. That carries jail time. Panic seized his face. "We can fix this, E. We can undo it. The money. I can pay it back. We can kill the audit." "Oh, the audit is the least of your problems," I said, leaning forward. "Let's talk about the offshore transfer we authorized last week. The Sarah Mark Legacy Fund, remember?" I watched the name land on him like a physical blow. All of Crestview's liquid assets are in there, including every last cent from Apex Strategic Solutions. All of your stolen money. He just stared, comprehension and horror warring in his eyes. "It's a very interesting trust," I continued, my voice level and calm. "It has a clause. A gross financial misconduct clause. It gives the founding trustee, that's me, unilateral authority to freeze and reallocate all assets, which I did, an hour ago. Your nest egg is gone, Mark. It's underwriting the Lakeside project now, my project." He sank into one of the chairs opposite my desk, his body deflating. "You bastard. You're finished at Crestview," I said, my tone final. "You're going to sign over your entire 50% stake in this company to me, for $1. In return, I will consider not filing a civil suit that would bankrupt your children's children. The city will still come for you, the IRS too, but I'll be out of it. It's the only deal you're going to get." I slid a single document and a pen across the polished wood of the desk. "Sign it." He looked from the paper to my face, searching for a trace of the man he knew, the friend he'd betrayed. He found nothing. With a trembling hand, he signed his name, surrendering the empire we had built together. I got home just after 6. The penthouse was filled with the scent of garlic and rosemary. Sarah was in the kitchen, a glass of wine in her hand, a cookbook open on the counter. She was glowing, radiant in her ignorance. "Hi, honey," she said, smiling brightly. "You'll never believe it. The villa in Tuscany confirmed our booking." I didn't smile back. "We need to talk." I led her into the living room, the glittering skyline, a cold, unblinking audience. She sat on the edge of the sofa, her smile faltering as she registered my expression. "What is it, Ethan? You're scaring me." "Mark won't be with the company anymore," I said. "He's been stealing from us for years, a shell corporation called Apex Strategic Solutions." Her face went slack. Every drop of color vanished. It was the most honest expression I'd seen from her in 5 years. She knew the name. Of course she did. He created a trust. I went on, my voice a monotone instrument of destruction. "And you were the sole beneficiary. It seems my best friend and my wife weren't just having an affair. They were partners in a criminal conspiracy against me." "Ethan, no, it wasn't like that," she stammered, tears welling in her eyes. The performance was reflexive, but her heart wasn't in it. She was caught. "Save it." I cut her off. "I know everything. The hotels, the trips, the lies. I've known for weeks." She began to sob, the practiced, delicate crying of a woman used to getting her way. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. I made a terrible mistake. Please, don't leave me." "Leave you?" I almost laughed. "Oh, no, that's too easy." I stood up and walked to the window. "You see, all that money Mark funneled to you? It's evidence. It makes you an accomplice to felony, grand larceny, and wire fraud. Our prenup has an infidelity clause that leaves you with nothing. But this is so much worse for you. An infidelity clause is clean. You leave with your clothes and your car. But complicity in felony fraud? That comes with a prison sentence, Sarah. And I have every wire transfer, every invoice, every document required to ensure a conviction." She stared at me, her face a mask of disbelief, turning to sheer terror. "You wouldn't. You thought you had two options," I continued, ignoring her plea. "A comfortable life with me, or a rich new one with Mark. You overlooked the third, a 10 by 12 cell, or you can accept the option I am offering you now." I let the silence hang in the air, thick and suffocating. "We will stay married," I stated, my voice devoid of all emotion. "You will continue to live in this penthouse. You will smile at my side at every charity gala and board dinner. You will play the part of the devoted Mrs. Vance. To the world, absolutely nothing will have changed." Her eyes flickered with a desperate, pathetic hope. I extinguished it immediately. "But your credit cards will be canceled. Your private bank accounts, which I can now prove were funded by stolen money, will be closed. You will have no access to funds, save for a small weekly allowance I will provide. Enough for groceries, not enough for a life. You will live in this monument to our success, a prisoner in the life you tried to steal. You will watch me thrive, and you will do it with a perfect smile on your face." "Ethan, please," she whispered, the tears now flowing freely. "This is monstrous." "Monstrous was plotting with my best friend for 5 years. I countered coldly. "This is a consequence. You will sign a post-nuptial agreement tomorrow morning, acknowledging your complicity and accepting these terms. The alternative is a single phone call to the district attorney. The choice is yours." The fight drained out of her, replaced by a hollow emptiness. She just nodded, a slow, jerky motion of absolute surrender. She wasn't my wife anymore. She was just an asset I now controlled. I didn't feel joy or triumph. I felt balanced. The accounts were settled. Mark lost his empire. Sarah lost her freedom. And I stood alone in the ruins they had made, the sole owner of everything they ever wanted. My revenge wasn't a raging fire. It was a silent, permanent winter. When it comes to revenge for a betrayal this deep, which do you think is more effective? A big, loud confrontation, or something quiet and devastating? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.